Dr. Adrian Hale had always believed there were two kinds of danger: the kind that exploded spectacularly, and the kind that quietly rearranged your life until you woke up in a reality you didn't recognize. Tonight, he suspected he was about to experience both. Hellion Station's Grand Hall wasn't built to impress humans. It was built to intimidate every species that walked, floated, glided, pulsed, or phased through the galaxy. Living crystal arched overhead, bending starlight into cascading colors that shifted with the collective emotional field. Adrian watched the ceiling flicker between anxious blues and diplomatic amber, and wondered which color represented human scientist having an existential meltdown. Try not to make eye contact with anything that can read your DNA by smell, Ambassador Rhea murmured beside him. And if a delegate approaches you and the air temperature drops more than 5 degrees, bow immediately. That means they're deciding whether you're edible. Fantastic, Adrian muttered. Great tip, really sets the tone. He tugged at the collar of his borrowed formal uniform, something too stiff, too white, and too obviously designed for people who had social skills. Adrian was a xenocognitive researcher. He wrote academic papers with titles like Temporal Overlap in Multi-State Intelligence Systems. He did not belong at the most politically charged gathering in the Celestial Accord. He was here because of one reason: the Vorathi, a species so reclusive no human had ever spoken to one directly. A species whose predatory efficiency was the subject of military nightmare briefings. A species Adrian had studied for 8 years from afar, using scraps of declassified sensor data, fragmented linguistic patterns, and the occasional blurred hollow image. Tonight, their queen was attending the Accord for the first time in 286 years. An alien choir resonated behind him, harmonic frequencies that made his ribs vibrate. Amphibious diplomats drifted in shimmering grav pools. Machine emissaries shaped themselves into temporary symbols, adjusting their geometry to greet new arrivals. Adrian whispered, "This is the most beautiful panic attack I've ever had." Rhea elbowed him. "She's entering." A silence spread, not enforced but instinctive. The atmosphere shifted, denser, sharper. Queen Seraphiz stepped into the hall. Adrian felt the change before he saw her, like the air had decided to stand at attention. Seraphiz moved with lethal calm, 7 feet of obsidian skin traced with faint bioluminescent ridges that pulsed in elegant patterns along her spine and collarbones. Her golden prism eyes reflected the entire room at once. Her presence didn't demand attention. It erased the need for anything else. Even the crystalline diplomats, normally impossible to impress, dimmed their temporal refractions in deference. Adrian's heart tripped over itself. He'd spent years analyzing Vorathi neural architecture based on limited data, but seeing Seraphiz in person was like watching a thunderstorm learn to walk. Beautiful, he breathed, then immediately regretted it. Scientifically. Strategically, cognitively, I mean. Too late, Seraphiz paused mid-conversation with a multi-state crystalline delegate. Her head tilted slightly. Her gaze found him across the massive hall. The air stilled. Conversations died mid-syllable. Even the gravity field seemed to tighten, waiting. Rhea hissed, "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Adrian whispered, panicking. "I was observing quietly to myself." "You called the Vorathi queen beautiful during a temporal negotiation. She wasn't supposed to hear me. She can hear neutrino fluctuations. Of course she heard you." Seraphiz began walking toward them, though walking wasn't the right word. She glided, her steps soundless, precise, predatory. The formation of Vorathi guards around her flowed like liquid metal, adjusting to her pace. Adrian felt his fight-or-flight response ignite. "Ambassador," he whispered urgently, "protocol. Don't run. That is extremely unhelpful in my current psychological condition. Running is considered a declaration of prey status." "Oh good, great, wonderful cultural nuance." Seraphiz stopped 2 paces away. Up close, she was overwhelming. Height, presence, scent of ozone and warm minerals, the faint hum of bioluminescent energy shifting under her skin. Adrian could feel his pulse syncing with her aura in a way that was definitely not medically safe. "Human," she said softly. Her voice resonated like a tuned harmonic, vibrating more in bone than ear. "What did you call me?" Adrian swallowed, hard. "Beautiful," he said, in the scientific sense. One of her guards stiffened. A nearby species turned translucent in shock. Seraphiz blinked, slowly, not offended, not angered, curious. "You observed my negotiation," she said. "Explain your assessment." Academic instinct hijacked his fear. You were communicating across 4 temporal layers simultaneously, responding to each state thread without collapsing the quantum phase of the delegate's speech pattern. That requires adaptive cognition beyond any known baseline. It's, well, extraordinary. The hall murmured, shock, interest, disbelief. Seraphiz studied him as though dissecting something valuable. You understand our temporal exchanges, she said. I analyze cognition, all cognition. Yours is the most complex I've ever witnessed. A ripple of gold moved across her bioluminescent ridges. An emotion Adrian couldn't name, but recognized as significant. Then, walk with me. 200 delegates gasped. Adrian blinked. I'm sorry, what? Seraphiz turned, not checking if he followed. Her guards shifted formation around them in perfect. The private negotiation corridors of Hellion Station were not built for comfort. They were built for secrets. As Adrian followed Queen Seraphiz, the walls shifted subtly around them, adjusting atmospheric density and refractive properties based on the species present. Patterns of light rippled over every surface, reacting to the emotional signatures of the Queen's escort. Every ripple was sharp, focused, on edge. They weren't escorting a diplomat, they were escorting a weapon. Adrian swallowed hard and tried not to look like someone who could be crushed by a firm handshake. The Queen spoke without slowing her pace. You are not what I anticipated from a human delegation. Adrian blinked. Is that good? That depends, Seraphiz replied, her voice smooth as dark glass. Do you consider curiosity a threat? Yes, he said before thinking. No, your curiosity is great. My curiosity is good. Everyone's curiosity is situationally safe. She paused very slightly, the Vorathi equivalent of raising an eyebrow. You speak quickly when you are afraid, she said. That's accurate. Does fear sharpen your cognition? Not at all, Adrian said. Fear makes my brain do parkour. A faint pulse of gold flickered beneath her skin. Amusement, he suspected. He didn't know how he knew that, but something about her bioluminescence felt almost intuitive now. They entered a neutral chamber, oval walls, soft crystalline floors, a single obsidian table at the center. The air here was calm, cool, heavy with expectation. The Vorathi guards arranged themselves around the room in a mathematically precise formation. Seraphiz dismissed them with a small gesture. Leave us. The guards hesitated, clearly uneasy about being more than 2 meters away from her, but obeyed. Adrian realized with a jolt that he was now alone with the most dangerous being in the accord. Seraphiz approached him, movements smooth and perfectly controlled. You observed my negotiation with the Qorathi. Explain how. Adrian straightened slightly, slipping into his academic voice, the one place where fear couldn't follow. I specialize in xenocognition, he said. Cross-species processing patterns, thought structures, attention signatures. You weren't negotiating, at least not in the human sense. You were predicting. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger but interest. Continue. You weren't reacting to their statements. You were responding to the probability distribution of their next 3 responses simultaneously. That's why you answered slightly before they finished speaking. It wasn't interruption, it was temporal anticipation. The Queen's golden eyes brightened. Most species do not perceive the temporal distortion of Qorathi speech. Even fewer can identify the anticipation model we use. Well, Adrian said with a weak smile, I had diagrams. Diagrams, and charts, and a graph with hand-drawn arrows that made sense at 3 in the morning, but absolutely no sense later. Seraphiz stared at him for 3 long seconds. Then, I wish to see these diagrams. Adrian blinked. I can show you later. No, now. Adrian hesitated. They're on my datapad. Retrieve it. I left it with the delegation. She stepped closer, much closer. Retrieve it. Adrian nodded so hard his neck popped. Yes, absolutely, datapad retrieval, excellent idea, very smart. He turned to leave, but a Vorathi guard was already waiting at the door, datapad in hand. Seraphiz had anticipated his hesitation. Of course she had. The Queen nodded for Adrian to proceed. He opened the datapad, hands slightly trembling, and brought up his research. Pages of diagrams, neural models, syntactic overlays, probability maps, and one particularly chaotic sketch titled Temporal Conversational Ping Pong. Seraphiz stepped beside him, close enough that Adrian felt the warmth radiating from her bioluminescent ridges. Her pupils dilated as she studied the data. You constructed these models using second-hand observational fragments, she said. Yes. No direct Vorathi contact. No. And yet your predictions are within a 5% deviation of our documented cognitive patterns. Adrian's voice softened. I just try to understand how you think. Seraphiz looked at him sharply, deeply, as if the words carried weight. Most species fear what they cannot understand, she said. You attempt to understand it. Well, Adrian shrugged. Fear and curiosity use the same circuits. It's just a matter of which one wins. The Queen's bioluminescence pulsed with a soft, shimmering glow, something warmer than anything he'd seen earlier. This, she said quietly, is why you trouble me. Trouble you. You perceive patterns that are not meant for outsiders. You see beneath the surface of strategy. You interpret our silence, our stillness, our restraint. She circled him slowly, not predatory but analytical. To understand a predator is to become dangerous to them, she said. And yet you do not attempt to use this understanding. You simply observe. Well, I like patterns, Adrian murmured. They're comforting, like puzzles that breathe. Seraphiz stopped directly in front of him. Human, she said, her voice quieter, now lower, almost intimate. You look at me as though I am not a monster. Adrian froze, her eyes, bright gold, sharp, searching, held something raw beneath them, something almost vulnerable. You're not a monster, he said softly. You're fascinating. The chamber hummed. The Queen's bioluminescent ridges flared briefly, like a heartbeat made of light. But before she could respond, the chamber doors burst open. A panicked Vorathi advisor entered, armor flickering with urgent alerts. My Queen, pardon the intrusion, but there has been an incident in the main hall, a diplomatic threat directed at the human. Adrian blinked. Me. What did I do now? I wasn't even there. Seraphiz's expression shifted. The grand summit hall had been noisy before, alive with layered conversations in dozens of frequencies. But as Queen Seraphiz strode back into the chamber with Adrian close behind her, silence fell like a gravitational collapse. Delegations parted instinctively, each species shifting into its cultural posture of alarm. The air itself tensed, shimmering in faint ripples as defensive fields quietly activated. Only one group did not yield. The Keth Syndicate, a cluster of tall, sinewed beings with skin like rippling metal, their eyes burning with bioplasmic embers. They were infamous for using diplomacy as a prelude to bloodshed. The Keth envoy stepped forward. His voice vibrated the floor. Queen Seraphiz, he said, we demand the human be held accountable for violating Level 7 multisensory protocol. Adrian blinked. I don't even know what that is. Several species nodded sympathetically. Humans were known for touching things they shouldn't. The Keth envoy gestured sharply. He projected unauthorized emotional resonance toward our delegation. This is an act of aggression under Keth law. Adrian stared. Projected emotional, I wasn't even near you. The envoy hissed. Your gaze carried intent. Adrian sputtered. My gaze? What did my gaze do? File taxes incorrectly. Several smaller delegates flinched at his volume. Seraphiz raised a hand. Instant silence. Her golden eyes locked onto the Keth envoy, unblinking. You accuse a human, she said slowly, of psychic aggression. That is correct. Seraphiz stepped closer, her bioluminescent ridges pulsing with a cold, electric light. Humans, she said, are not psychic. That is irrelevant. We felt something. The law states. The law, Seraphiz cut in, states nothing that excuses your incompetence. A soft ripple of shock passed through the hall. Vorathi did not insult other species lightly. The envoy stiffened. You dare? Yes, Seraphiz said simply. I dare. Her voice sharpened, a crystalline edge beneath velvet. You felt resonance because you interpreted the human's fear as aggression. Your species defaults to hostility. A flaw of biology, not diplomacy. The Keth envoy surged forward, but 3 Vorathi guards materialized instantly between him and the Queen, their armor humming with restrained violence. Adrian whispered, Are they about to fight? This looks like fighting energy. Seraphiz placed one hand behind her, palm open, a silent command for Adrian to stay exactly where he was. He did, because despite the terror pulsing through his veins, there was something mesmerizing about her now, calm, coiled, lethal. The envoy's voice cracked with outrage. This human insulted us with intent. Seraphiz tilted her head. And how do you propose to prove intent? With a resonance test. The hall stirred. A resonance test. Was dangerous, deadly even. Especially for species without psychic defenses. Adrian's mouth went dry. That sounds bad. Why does that sound bad? Seraphiz spoke before the envoy could answer. You will not subject him to your test. That is not for you to decide, the envoy snarled. He stands accused, we demand adjudication. Seraphiz took one deliberate step forward. All light in the hall dimmed. Her ridges flared with a predator's warning glow as she spoke each word with cold precision. The human stands under my protection. Gasps erupted from every corner of the hall. A Vorathi declaring protection was not ceremonial. It was binding, it was absolute. It was equivalent to declaring someone part of her personal domain. The envoy recoiled. You protect him, a primitive, a prey-species academic. Adrian coughed. Okay, rude. Seraphiz didn't move, but her voice dropped into a register that made every instinct in Adrian's body scream, do not anger this woman. He is under my shield, she said. Touch him, and you challenge me. The Keth envoy faltered for the first time. Even the Keth were not reckless enough to provoke a Vorathi queen openly. He switched tactics. We will bring this before the tribunal, he said. Your interference will be noted. Do so, Seraphiz said, and they will note your incompetence as well. The Keth delegation retreated, each step rigid with humiliation. Only when they were far enough did the hall breathe again. Seraphiz turned to Adrian. Her expression softened, but only slightly. You are unharmed. Physically, yes, emotionally, I may need therapy. Her lips almost curved. Almost. You will not be harmed while you are under my protection. Adrian swallowed. Why am I under your protection? Her eyes met his golden bright searching. Because, she said quietly, your insight is dangerous. Adrian frowned. Dangerous how? You see the truths others miss. You interpret intent from patterns most species cannot perceive. You understood the Quarathi negotiation. You understood me. Her bioluminescence dimmed slightly, a pulse of honesty. And because of that, others will fear you. Adrian blinked. So, you're protecting me because I'm scary. No, Seraphiz said, because they are scared. He opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. That is the least comforting thing anyone has ever said to me. Good. She turned. Fear keeps you aware. He hurried to follow her as guards flanked them once more. But before they reached the private corridors, a new delegate blocked their path. An elderly, translucent being whose form shimmered like fog over ice. A seer, her voice echoed across frequencies. Queen Seraphiz, human Adrian Hale, your paths have entangled. Seraphiz stiffened. Seers should not interfere. The being ignored her. Your converging futures shift the accord, she said. What you build or destroy will echo for generations. Adrian whispered, I don't like the word destroy. Can we remove destroy from the prophecy? The seer's eyes glowed faintly. You will choose between survival and connection, between safety and truth, between isolation and alliance. Then she looked directly at Adrian through him, and your choice will shape hers. Seraphiz stepped protectively in front of him. That is enough. The seer bowed and dissolved into luminescent mist. Adrian exhaled shakily. Is that normal? No, Seraphiz said. Seers do not offer unsolicited prophecy. He stared at the diplomatic corridors of Hellion Station were quiet now, too quiet. Adrian followed Seraphiz through the branching crystalline passages, still trying to understand how, in less than an hour, he had gone from anonymous academic to political flashpoint. He had always believed history was shaped by powerful figures, not anxious researchers who accidentally made eye contact with the wrong species. Yet here he was. As the doors to a private Vorathi suite sealed behind them, the noise of the summit vanished. The room shifted its architecture automatically. Dark stone textures rising from the floor, gravity adjusting, temperature dropping to Vorathi norm. Seraphiz inhaled deeply, subtle, but unmistakably weary. It was the first time Adrian had seen anything resembling fatigue from her. Please, the queen said, gesturing toward a seat formed of polished obsidian. Sit. He did, mostly because his knees were starting to wobble. Seraphiz remained standing, watching him with those unreadable golden eyes. You have created a complication, she said at last. Adrian winced. Accidentally. Accidents, she murmured, shape the galaxy far more often than intent. That sounds like something a seer would say. Seraphiz's jaw tightened slightly. She should not have approached us. Adrian leaned forward. Why, what does her prophecy mean? Nothing, Seraphiz said too quickly. Then softer, everything. She turned away, her bioluminescent ridges dimming to a low, controlled glow. Vorathi culture does not tolerate unpredictability, she said. Prophecy is seen as destabilizing, dangerous. Then why did she? Because, Seraphiz interrupted, your presence creates a divergence in predicted paths. Adrian blinked. I create a divergence. She faced him fully, her expression impossible to decipher. You understand our thinking patterns, she said. You perceive structure where others see chaos. You decode intention from silence. She paused, and you speak to me without fear. Adrian scratched the back of his neck. I mean, I'm terrified. Constantly. Yes, Seraphiz said, but fear does not silence you. That makes you unusual. Something in her tone shifted, soft, almost vulnerable, quickly masked. The moment I declared you under my protection, she continued, you became a political factor. Adrian swallowed. Is that bad? For you, potentially. For me? She hesitated. It depends. She walked to the viewport, where Hellion Station drifted against a backdrop of swirling nebulae. Light reflected along the ridges of her spine, casting long shadows. Two factions oppose me, she said quietly. The Council of War Leaders, who believe Vorathi supremacy must be maintained through isolation. A pause, and the Syndicate Alliance, who seek expansion by force. And you, Adrian asked. Seraphiz took her time answering. I seek something neither side understands, she said. Stability through understanding, strength through knowledge. Peace that does not require surrender. That, Adrian murmured, sounds almost human. Her gaze snapped to him. Do not mistake my belief in stability for softness. I didn't. You did. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Okay, maybe a little. Another flicker of gold, amusement or irritation, he couldn't tell. The Keth Syndicate accused you for a reason, Seraphiz continued. Not because they believed you violated protocol. Humans lack the psi depth. They accused you because they sensed something they could not define. Which is, you are unpredictable. To a species that calculates dominance through threat modeling, unpredictability is intolerable. Adrian absorbed that. For the first time, the truth felt heavy. Seraphiz, he said quietly, I'm not trying to destabilize anything. But you have, she replied. Because you see patterns even the Vorathi do not expect an outsider to see. Adrian looked down at his hands. Is that why you protected me? No, she said softly. He looked up. Seraphiz's expression, usually carved from stone, softened in a way that made his breath catch. I protected you, she said, because the accusation was unjust, and because you stood alone in a hall of predators and did not cower. I almost passed out, Adrian whispered, yet you did not run. They held each other's gaze longer than either intended. Then the door chimed. A Vorathi guard stepped in, saluting in a pattern Adrian didn't yet understand. My queen, a coded transmission from the War Council, urgent. Display it. A hologram unfolded, Vorathi runes in cold violet light. Seraphiz's ridges bristled. They demand explanation for my protection of the human, she said. They accuse me of compromising Vorathi protocol. The guard shifted uneasily. They request a justification. Seraphiz's jaw tightened. Then they will receive one. She dismissed the guard, then turned to Adrian. You must understand something, she said. By placing you under my protection, I did not merely shield you from harm. I made a declaration. What kind of declaration? Seraphiz stepped closer, her presence enveloping him like a storm front. The Vorathi, she said, do not protect outsiders. Ever. Adrian exhaled slowly. So what does that make me? Her voice lowered almost to a whisper. A variable, she said. A risk. A pause, a possibility. The room felt suddenly smaller, warmer, charged. Possibility of what? Adrian whispered. Seraphiz held his gaze, unblinking, searching, unreadable. That, she said, is what they fear. Before Adrian could respond, the lights flickered. A sharp alarm pulsed through the chamber. Seraphiz's ridges flared violently. Stay behind me. What's happening? There is an intruder. In here, the corridor outside the Queen's suite pulsed with red light as the station's alarm system shifted into high-threat mode. A low-frequency vibration trembled through the walls, a warning that something dangerous, something very deliberate, had breached the diplomatic levels. Seraphiz moved first. Her blade unfolded from its hilt like a shard of starlight, humming with contained plasma. Her armor shifted around her shoulders in seamless plates, forming a protective exoshell. Adrian, she said without turning, stay behind me. I am absolutely behind you, he whispered. Emotionally, spiritually, physically, I am so behind you I might merge with the wall. The doors hissed again, this time from forced override. Seraphiz's ridges flared with a cold, violent glow. Get back. Adrian obeyed, retreating toward a secondary alcove just as the door blew inward with a concussive blast that fractured the crystalline threshold. 3 figures stormed through the smoke, tall, armored, silent. Not Keth, not council operatives. These were assassins. Their armor was matte black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Their movements were smooth, disturbingly coordinated, and for Adrian, horribly familiar. Vorathi? He whispered. Seraphiz didn't answer. She didn't need to. Only Vorathi's stealth units moved like that, but her people attacking her. Or worse, him? The thought twisted Adrian's stomach. The assassins circled, silent as shadows. One raised a wrist module, projecting a scanning beam across the room. Seraphiz stepped forward, blade raised in a perfect arc of defensive posture. You trespass in a queen's chamber, she said, voice echoing with deadly calm. Explain yourself. The lead assassin tilted its head, then spoke in a synthesized whisper. We are not here for you. Seraphiz's blade lowered a fraction of an inch. We are here for the human. Adrian choked. Oh, come on. The assassins moved. They were fast, faster than anything human reflexes could track, but Seraphiz was faster. She intercepted the first strike with a single upward slash, sending a shower of sparks across the dark stone floor. The second assassin lunged from the side, knife flashing. Seraphiz pivoted, blocking with her forearm plate and countering with a brutal knee strike that sent the attacker skidding across the room. But the third assassin didn't go for her. He went for Adrian. Adrian stumbled backward, grabbing the nearest object, which unfortunately was a Vorathi ceremonial vase carved from living crystal. He swung it on instinct. It shattered harmlessly against the assassin's armor. Right, Adrian gasped. Should have expected that. The assassin grabbed him by the collar, lifting him off the ground. Adrian's brain flooded with panic. Think, think, think. He looked at the assassin's armor plates. The angles, the spacing, the tiny glowing nodes. A memory surfaced, one of his diagrams. Vorathi stealth armor used microphase alignment, meaning. Misalignment creates neural feedback, Adrian whispered. He jabbed his finger into the exposed nodule at the assassin's collarbone, the one point where armor plates couldn't fully synchronize. The assassin convulsed violently, dropping him. Adrian hit the ground with a painful thud. Seraphiz was on the attacker an instant later, her blade slicing in a clean, paralyzing arc that disabled the suit. The remaining assassins paused, recalculating. They hadn't expected the human to know Vorathi armor weaknesses. Seraphiz's voice was pure ice. Touch him again, she said, and I will dismantle you molecule by molecule. The assassins attacked as 3 blurs of lethal intent. Seraphiz met them in a storm of motion. She fought like a collapsing star, silent, radiant, unstoppable. Her blade sang as it cut through kinetic fields, sparks exploding against the obsidian floor. She moved with impossible precision, every strike a calculated decision, every pivot a lethal equation executed flawlessly. Adrian watched, breathless. He had spent years studying Vorathi behavioral patterns, but nothing had prepared him for the real thing. Seraphiz wasn't just a warrior. She was inevitability given form. Within seconds, 2 assassins lay incapacitated, armor sparking and flickering. The third attempted to flee. Seraphiz threw her blade. It pierced the wall beside the assassin's head with a burst of blue plasma. The assassin froze. Who sent you? The queen demanded. The assassin remained silent. Seraphiz stepped closer. Speak. Still nothing. Adrian saw it before she did. The assassin's wrist module glowing, blinking an auto-terminate failsafe. Seraphiz, he shouted. Disconnect his neural link now. The queen reacted instantly, slicing the module free just as it discharged a burst of destructive neural energy. The assassin collapsed, unconscious but alive. Seraphiz turned to Adrian. Her expression had changed. Something fierce, something shaken, something painfully human. You recognized their armor flaw, she said softly. Adrian nodded weakly, still shaking. It was in one of my papers. You saved his life, she said. I was trying to save mine. Seraphiz approached him slowly, carefully, as though afraid he might break. You are injured. I'm fine, Adrian lied. His ribs screamed otherwise. Seraphiz's hand hovered near his arm but didn't quite touch him. You should not be involved in this level of conflict. I didn't choose it. No, she murmured, but someone chose it for you. Adrian swallowed. Your people tried to kill me. Some of them, she said bitterly. Not all, but enough. Why? She inhaled sharply. Because protecting you was seen as a declaration. Her voice dropped, a declaration they intend to challenge. Adrian felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. What kind of declaration? Seraphiz met his gaze, and this time didn't look away. The kind, she said quietly, that binds futures. The room fell silent, too silent. Then Seraphiz added, barely audible, and the kind that terrifies those who cannot imagine a galaxy where Vorathi and human destinies intertwine. Adrian's breath caught, Seraphiz, but she stepped back not coldly but out of fear that proximity itself might endanger him. We must leave the station, she said. Now. Leave to where? To the only place I can guarantee your safety. She paused. My homeworld. The Vorathi flagship, Varith Ascendant, cut through hyperspace like a blade slicing open the night. Adrian had seen starships before, massive, elegant, awe-inspiring. He had never seen a ship that felt alive. Black metal scales shifted along the hull with each hyperspace ripple, bioluminescent veins pulsing beneath the surface like the heartbeat of some titanic beast. Vorathi architecture didn't imitate predators. It was one. Seraphiz had not spoken since they boarded. Not from coldness, Adrian sensed that. She was calculating, preparing. He watched her from across the command chamber as she reviewed the incoming transmission feeds. Every Vorathi aboard kept their distance, respectful, deferential, a mix of fear and loyalty swirling in the air every time she walked past. He was about to speak when Seraphiz's voice finally came, quiet, firm. We are arriving. The stars outside fractured into elongated threads, then snapped back into place. Thelos, the Vorathi homeworld, a planet carved into jagged black canyons, lit by rivers of molten crystal, wrapped in an atmosphere that shimmered with iridescent energy storms. Cities rose from the canyons like geometric fortresses, multi-layered structures woven from living stone and biometal, pulsing with ancient power. Adrian stared, breath caught somewhere between awe and existential terror. He swallowed, magnificent. Seraphiz didn't look at him, but her ridges glowed faintly. She heard the truth in his voice. They descended to the royal citadel, a monolithic structure unlike anything humans had ever mapped. The central spire twisted upward like the spine of a colossal creature, crowned with crystalline rings that rotated slowly, generating faint harmonic pulses. Adrian stepped out of the landing bay onto the obsidian platform and felt the weight of 1,000 eyes. Vorathi guards, council emissaries, war leaders, all staring at him. Seraphiz stepped forward, posture regal, predatory grace flowing through every motion. Adrian, she murmured without looking back, walk beside me, not behind. He hesitated only a second, then obeyed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Walking beside the queen was not symbolic. Walking beside the queen was a declaration. Inside the Citadel's grand hall, the war council awaited, 12 towering figures in ceremonial plating, every inch of them radiating lethal judgment. The council elder hissed the moment he laid eyes on Adrian. You bring an outsider to Thelos. Seraphiz didn't flinch. I bring the human targeted by our own assassins. A murmur of shock. The elder's ridges flared scarlet. You accuse Vorathi of attacking a queen protected. I state fact. And you shelter the human instead of delivering him for inquiry. Seraphiz's voice turned sharp as fractured crystal. He is under my shield. The chamber erupted into uproar, voices rising in overlapping frequencies, each one outraged. Adrian stood frozen, feeling like a pebble caught in a cosmic landslide. The elder slammed a staff into the floor. Enough. Queen Seraphiz, your actions have disrupted centuries of tradition. Declare your reasoning. Seraphiz stepped forward, and for the first time since he'd met her, Adrian saw something exposed behind her strength. Not weakness, conviction. She spoke clearly, letting her voice carry through the hall. The assassination attempt was not external. It originated within our ranks. Gasps spread like fire. Proof, the elder demanded. Seraphiz turned slightly. Adrian. He startled. Mate, you recognize the armor flaw, she said. Explain. Adrian stepped forward slowly, acutely aware that dozens of eyes were analyzing every muscle movement. I studied Vorathi microphase armor for years, he began. The assassins were using an outdated alignment model, one abandoned by your military 86 years ago. Only internal defectors would have access to it. The hall froze, dead silence. Adrian continued, his voice gaining steadiness. And their neural failsafe was a Vorathi military kill switch. Not Keth, not Syndicate, yours. The elder's ridges flickered in disbelief. You imply treason. I imply math, Adrian said. Your own specs match the armor's energy signature. A ripple of outrage, of fear, of dawning realization spread through the chamber. Seraphiz stepped beside Adrian, not shielding him but aligning with him. The traitors acted to sabotage diplomatic progression, she said. They fear what the human represents. And what is that? The elder spat. Seraphiz met Adrian's eyes, then turned to the council. Possibility. The word echoed through the chamber. Human cognition identifies patterns we do not, Seraphiz continued. Their adaptability reveals paths we overlook. Their unpredictability is not weakness, but evolution. The War Council stiffened. You risk contamination of Vorathi identity, one growled. Seraphiz's voice hardened. No, I risk stagnation if we continue alone. A long, tense silence. Then the elder delivered the question the entire galaxy had been whispering. Why protect him? Seraphiz inhaled, slow, controlled. Then she turned fully toward Adrian. Her golden eyes glowed with something he had never seen from her before, something unguarded, unmistakable. When he looked at me, Seraphiz said, he did not see a monster or a weapon or a myth. He saw a mind. She paused, and in 3 centuries, no one has done that. Adrian's heartbeat thundered in his ears. The hall shifted, energy tightening, waiting. Seraphiz stepped closer to him. This human has shown me truths our people have forgotten, and I will not allow fear, yours or anyone else's, to determine the future of the Vorathi. The elder spoke slowly, voice trembling with anger. You declare him partner. The entire hall inhaled. Adrian forgot how to breathe. Seraphiz looked at him now, not as a queen, not as a warrior, but as someone choosing honesty over tradition. No, she said softly. Adrian's chest sank. Then she added, not yet. A shockwave of whispers rippled through the chamber. Seraphiz's next words were steady, deliberate, carved from certainty. But I declare him my equal in discourse. My chosen advisor, my protected, and if the future aligns. Her gaze held his, my chosen. Silence, charged, beautiful, terrifying. The War Council erupted, but their outrage no longer mattered. Seraphiz raised one hand and the hall obeyed, falling into reluctant quiet. She leaned toward Adrian, voice low enough only he heard. You once asked what you are to me, she murmured. You are not prey, not accident, not anomaly. Her ridges glowed in harmonious waves. You are the divergence that changes everything. Adrian's breath caught, every nerve in his body pulling toward her, not out of fear, but recognition, connection. Seraphiz extended her hand, not a command, but an invitation. Walk beside me, she said, into whatever future we create. And with all of Thelos watching, with every fear and possibility,